Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello, you wonderful homeschoolers out there. Thank you for joining us. If you have the chance, head down into the show notes and see if you could support the podcast and keep us, rolling along on the road of life and homeschooling and sharing all this great content with you. Especially today, we have a great interview. But feel free to head down in there and also click on our YouTube channel and hit a subscribe, hit the notification bell, and get all of our reviews and our vlog and see what we're doing in our crazy homeschool as it moves along.
Yeah, and
way down the road.
So we're constantly thinking about what new resources and things can we put together. We put together our around the world resource packs for all the different continents that have books and movies and games and videos and all kinds of stuff. And we want to keep supporting families on their journey. So if there's a social studies curriculums, or if there's like unit studies you really need, if there's things that would really help you, it would be great for you to reach out to us. Let us know. We're always available at homeschooltogetherpodcast@gmail.com. So we're always thinking about what things could be really helpful to other families out there. So definitely, reach out and let us know.
So today we have a wonderful interview with a homeschool mom, Shari Shearer, and she is homeschooling down in California, and they have a little bit of a different systems available, and they're talking about her homeschool charter. She has two young girls that she is homeschooling down there, and she works through the public school system with this wonderful charter program that allows her to go into these classrooms and have kind of the student-led project-based experience through the school year while she homeschools the core subjects at home. And it's this kind of really cool partnership that she's been able to take advantage of while her kids get these kind of like social experience and be able to do these projects. She's also doing a lot of activities, a lot of swimming, a lot of sports. She has big play groups they're playing with. So it's a really cool kind of vibrant community that she's in the middle of.
It was really very strange. We were talking about this, how Shari is kind of like us in an alternate reality because her girls are very close in age, and there were so many similarities. You're going to hear a lot, and I'm going to apologize right up front. You're going to hear a lot of me going, same.
That's
Same.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's us. As we listen to Shari's interview, because there were so many similar traits between her oldest daughter and ours, and her youngest daughter and ours, and some of the struggles that they've gone through. While it was very trippy for us, I think the kind of cool thing is to know that, your experience parts of your experience aren't unique to just you. It's not just you that's struggling with that thing. There's a couple of points where she said that her children were like, oh, I got to do another math or whatever. And we were like, yes, that's us too. So it's great to hear sometimes that it's like, okay, there are others out there that have some of the same struggles that I do, which is one of the reasons that I love these homeschool journey interviews, because they really do highlight how, there's differences, but there's also similarities, and like, we're all in this together, really.
Absolutely. So we hope you enjoy this. This was a great interview, a lot of fun for us with Shari Shearer.
Hi, Shari. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi.
Well, so we're really excited to have you. You've got some cool things to talk about with us tonight as we record this. So let's get some background. Tell us a little bit about your family and what got y'all into homeschooling.
So there's me, my husband, and we have two girls. So they are 7 and 5. So currently we are about to start officially second grade, and my youngest will be officially starting kindergarten, but you know how that goes with homeschooling.
We do.
And then we also have a cat that the kids talked us into getting during COVID.
COVID cat.
Yes, he was a COVID cat.
Well, that's a great split because we're kind of very similar. We have the 5-year-old starting kindergarten, and we have the third grader starting 9-year-old. So that's really awesome. So what kind of got you into homeschooling? Why was that the choice for you and your family?
My husband definitely was the one who brought it up first, and I was a little skeptical. But as I didn't actually think I'd want to be even a stay-at-home mom, and then we had my first daughter, and I was like, I don't want to leave my kid.
I
So
know.
I ended up staying home, and then we were like, well, I've already been home. So we met with a friend of ours who homeschooled. So successfully, his kids were like in high school. I think he had already launched one to college, and that son now works for what's the Arizona football team, the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
So
Yep.
yeah, he works for them. So they're always my proof when people are like, but do homeschool kids, can they do things? I'm like, three successful kids in college and one works for a NFL football team. So I think homeschool kids can do okay. But yeah, I guess in general, it's just my husband and I both went to the same school district where we live, and we were not really challenged. And so I think we just wanted something different for our kids. We wanted to be able to kind of personalize their education. And so we just took the leap.
So you said you were a little apprehensive about homeschooling. Was there anything specific that you were concerned about when starting that process?
Probably the things most people call you out on, like the socialization aspect. And I mean, I enjoyed school. So it wasn't one of these like, well, I didn't enjoy school, so I don't want to send my kids there. I really like school. I had good memories of going to school and making friends. And and of course, I was like, wondering if I would be able to teach my kids, especially reading was what I was most nervous about. I was like, I can teach someone what a textbook says if they can read it, but if I have to actually teach them from the beginning how to read all those words, I'm not sure that I know how to do that.
Mhm.
So,
It's a big piece. It's funny that you say that you really liked school, but you weren't challenged,
Mhm.
because that's like 100% me. I really loved school. I was all into it. I loved getting my new backpack every year. I loved talking with the teachers. I was a little bit of teachers, but I was a really high
yep.
performer, but it was never very challenging for me. And one of the things that I realized, and I don't know if you had this happen to you in your adult life, was that education that was very easy really caught up with me. So when I went into
Yep.
college, all of a sudden I felt like, hey man, I rocked high school. I got great grades. I'm totally prepared for this. And I got a real wake up call my freshman year of college that I was
Yes.
not very well prepared.
I definitely did. Yeah. And definitely didn't have maybe the study skills that I needed because I'd never really had to study
Mhm.
hard.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's very interesting because some people assume that, oh, you're only going to homeschool either because your kids can't, don't fit in a public school environment, or because you had such a bad experience in
Mhm.
public school. I think it's great to, talk about people who we had still had a great public school experience, but it still isn't what we want to do for our family now.
So when did you start your homeschooling process? At what age? You said you have a rising second grader. When did that begin for you guys?
I maybe started really looking into it probably, 9 months to a year ahead of time because we knew we wanted to do it, but I was pretty sure I didn't want to go it alone. I joined some groups, started finding out how you even do it, found out that there's also like charter schools, and there are so many options, which is also sort of overwhelming. And I might saying I live in San Diego, so I live in a really big city, but it was still really challenging to find like a good place to find like all the information in one spot. So it took a lot of time to kind of sort through it all.
So did you use like local moms groups or things? Like how did you parse through? Because I'm sure it can be difficult and there isn't one central repository that says, hey, these are all the groups and all the things. And
Yeah, both. So Facebook groups, that's usually where I have my find my mom groups, asking in there about what people do, what they like, what the good like, charter schools are, and then Googling also.
So did you? So when you finally made that decision, I think you said you talked a little bit about the charter. Is that the what you guys started out with, or did you evolve into the charter?
So that's how we started. So I usually call it, we do like a homeschool hybrid. So We are attached to a regular 5-day public school. And then our program kind of runs within that school. So it is a kind of like a charter school program. The school itself is a charter school, but we don't get funds. Like, I know a lot of people who homeschool who are attached to a charter school, it's like that. The only thing they get from them is funds and then the reporting, which is probably how I initially was like, oh yeah, I want to do that. I want to at least have someone to talk to, and I want someone else to deal with all the paperwork. So then I found the school we use. So they go 2 days a week and they do project-based student-led learning. So the teachers there, they all homeschool their own kids, and they've taught in the public sector. Because what I found when I went on a couple tours, and a lot of these teachers, I was like, oh, well, do you homeschool? They're like, well, no, because I'm working here. Well, feels like there's a disconnect there. So these ladies, their kids are now grown, but they know both sides. So when you have issues, they've been there. So they just do like I said, project-based learning. So they kind of talk to the kids at the beginning of the year, find out what they're interested in. Last year, my kid turned their entire classroom into a rainforest. And then at the end of the year, they built cardboard canoes that they floated across the pool with them inside of them.
Oh, neat.
That's so cool.
It was cool. I was like, we're gonna do what? That sounds like a lot of work. But they also do all the kind of social, emotional stuff that's hard to do when you just have two siblings.
Mm-hmm.
So, they teach them how to work in groups, how to resolve conflicts. I'm pretty sure my 7-year-old knows how to like resolve conflicts better than a lot of grown adults. So, and because they're embedded in the school, they also get access to the electives. So they do like a rotation. So they've done theater, they've done pottery, they've done nature studies, where they get to like hold snakes and creepy stuff like that. So I kind of see as the best of both worlds. And then with the kind we do, we still are in charge of doing all the academics at home. So like I have a friend, and they go to one where they send you home with a lesson plan, and all the kids are still doing like the same lessons. And I was like, well, that's not the kind of homeschooling I want to do. The whole point is that I want to be able to work what fits my kids and at their pace. So that's why I kind of like ours, because they kind of have their separate thing. The only downside is my kid thinks school, quote unquote, is really fun. And that learning days at home with mommy are not so fun.
We've encountered this as well. Because our daughter does go and take all the electives, and she's like, why can't it be like school? It's like, well, not every time at home is choir, so I don't know what to tell you.
So is this this is obviously this is a private company who's getting state dollars to run the chart? It is a public school. Is this actually at one of the public schools, or is this a special building that they have that's separate?
So it is a public charter school.
Okay.
And then we're sort of embedded inside of it. So they use 3 classrooms there, because the school itself is broken up into 3 groups. So it's K through 2nd, 3rd through 5th, and 6th through 8th.
Gotcha.
So they have 3 classrooms within there. And then we do have to do, because we are part of a public school, another downside, we do have to do some standardized testing.
Yeah, so I was going to ask about that. I was wondering, what does that testing look like for you guys, and when does that start? Is that like right at the beginning, or is that something that's coming up in the future?
So we are doing it, I think, when I first started, when my daughter was in kindergarten. I think we sort of were still getting around doing it, but then they sort of cracked down, because California has really cracked down on charter schools. So we do have to do it twice a year. My daughter's only had to do math, but I think starting in 2nd grade, she'll have to do like a reading one too. So we just do it at home. We're sort of like our own, we get on a Zoom so I guess they're kind of proctoring it, but they just let you in the room and then you do it. And we just try to make it as fun as possible, because nobody likes testing.
Yeah.
Is that an online test, or is that something that you're just quizzing them with some topics? What does that look like for you guys?
It's an online test. So it's the MAPS test, which is probably used in a lot of schools.
Mm.
So it's tricky because it's one of these like progressive tests.
Oh, we
So it's like
hate
if you get in,
those.
yeah, so the kids kind of get really upset because it starts asking my like first grader multiplication problems. And she's like looking at me like, should I know this? I'm like, it's
Yeah.
okay. You don't know this. Just guess something and go forward. Like it's
I
okay.
literally hate those tests. I wish I get the upper bound. I get the going ahead a little bit so you can find out where they're really
But
at.
there's no answer for the I don't know. Like
Yes.
you have
Yes.
to just guess something. And what if you guess right? And
Right.
then
We had a friend do this. Her daughter
Yes.
guessed middle school questions right because there was only four answers and one of them wasn't I don't know. And so she ended up
Hmm.
guessing right and they just kept getting harder, right?
yeah,
And my other problem is there's no upper bound on those tests. So they don't say, "Oh, your kid's in first grade. We're not going to go any higher than third on this."
yeah,
No, they'll just keep going. And so our daughter absolutely had a meltdown when we tried to do a practice test with her last year.
yeah.
And this year we do need to take state testing because third grade is when we have to start doing it here. Um, and we're gonna have to like prep her all year emotionally to be able to take this stupid test. So I feel you. That
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah, we definitely did better. This I think we've only done it twice so far, but we'll be gearing up. We have to do it in a few weeks here when our new year starts. But it was much better the second time.
Okay.
But I think I did a lot more prepping. I'm like, it's okay to not know them. Like that's the whole point. They just want to know what you know. But I wish there was an I don't know because I've definitely seen her guess some correctly.
Yeah.
You almost need to like sit next to him and have your kids tell you, I don't know this one. And you can say, well, then select D because you know it's the wrong answer. Just so that it doesn't keep making it harder because they really don't know. Like I feel like we
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to
Suddenly
help
it's like, yeah, doing
correct this
division and
test.
multiplication. I'm like, we are still adding and subtracting.
So silly. So I'm really curious to know about you had talked about wanting the guidance from a teacher who was a former parent educator, which I think is awesome. Same thing at our schools, and we really love that. What's that process been like? Are they giving you a lot of oversight? Is it just like a check-in and some guidance, or what does that relationship look like?
So they're fairly hands off. We have what are called family meetings 2 or 3 times a year, which is basically just their chance to talk to us and the kids and find out. They can buy some of our curriculum, so they'll ask us what, as long as it's non secular, you know. So they'll ask us, what kind of curriculum we need. They talk to the kids a lot, obviously, about what topics they're interested so they can plan their curriculum. And then, but they are available if you run into a problem. So like last year, we were having a lot of problem with math and I needed someone to run it by besides my husband, who his philosophy was like, some things are just tough and you just have to muddle through. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not the right answer. So, but it was really nice to be able to go to the teacher and be like, okay, this is not working. help help talk me off the ledge here because my daughter is crying every day and we are both miserable. Something is not working and I
Mhm.
need someone to tell me it's okay to like ditch this curriculum and try something else.
So I know a lot of parents feel really uncomfortable about like giving any part to the public state, like the oversight they're going to get. And I'm going to have somebody on my back about what curriculum I'm using. And
Mhm.
overall, if there was a new parent that was interested in a charter but was holding, or for us, it's a parent partnership or whatever, one of these type of public schools for homeschoolers, but they're worried about the oversight part. What kind of advice would you give them as far as, from your experience and how they can maybe approach it? Because I know a lot of people feel very uncomfortable about this specific part of charters.
Yeah, I mean, of course, this is obviously all I know. So I'm not sure what sort of reporting is required if you're not attached. I mean, I do have to do work samples, which my daughter's always like, why do I have to write my name on this piece of paper? This time I never write my name on my paper. Like, well, we have to prove to them that you're learning stuff. And I mean, it's really not too onerous. We have to do them like every learning period. I think we have to submit learning samples, and it's like 4 or 5 a year. It's like one page. And if we're having trouble, that's why we have those teachers. We can ask them. We'd be like, I'm stuck on a work sample for this. And they'll be like, here's a worksheet you can have them do, or why don't you take a picture of them doing this, or here's something we did in class. I mean, that's part of the fun too, is they kind of give me all the forms and they send me a list of everything they taught them in class. So I can add that into our little report, and then I just fill in what we did. And then I have the teachers who are going to go back and they do all that hard work of looking at what we did and matching it up with like standards to report. I don't have to do any of that nonsense.
That's awesome.
That's great.
So yeah, that's the great thing about it, is I don't have to deal with the reporting, because I'm pretty sure even if you do your own, like you file a public school, a PSA, your public school affidavit, you still have to do some sort of like reporting. So you just have to do it on your own, which seems harder to me.
Yeah, we have to do some sort of assessment every year in the state of Washington, although we get to say what that assessment is. I mean, because we go to the school, it's easy to just say, oh, we'll do this assessment. And it helps them to get more funding from the state. So we will put up with those darn progressive tests just for that reason.
Well, you know, we do assessments anyways, just because I want to know where she is and if she's retaining the information. It's like, that's just like built into the activities and everything. So you go 2 days a week to your charter. What do the other 3 days, maybe 5 days, look like for you guys as a homeschool?
So we do all of our other learning in the 3 days. We don't generally do anything on the weekend. So we're not super like rigidly structured. My kids do a lot of extracurriculars. So we have swim lessons. My oldest is now on a swim team, sort of entering my sports mom era of life, I guess, because my youngest is on T-ball.
Well, welcome to the club. Yeah, welcome.
Is the swim team like 4 days a week? Because our swim teams are all like every day.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, thankfully we have the choice. It's actually pretty cool. They can go at her level. They want them to go 2 to 3 days a week, but you can go any days, Monday through Friday. They just have a certain time. So we don't even have to go the same days every week.
Okay. All right.
Which is nice,
That's
except
nice.
you know, as a homeschooler, I was used to being able to do all of our things early in the morning, and we tended to eat dinner early, but now we have swim practice and we don't get home till tonight. We got home at 6 o'clock because of traffic. So
I have a basketball game from 7:30 to 8:30 tomorrow night, or it's a third grader. Yes.
Yeah, we got to take the kindergartner in tow.
And you know, when this podcast started, that's our bedtime. So I gotta have a kid coming back like, I don't want to take a shower. I gotta go to bed.
Yeah.
We got to start moving the dinner time later. I think now that my kids stay up a little later, we just have to kind of start getting used to that. Yeah.
So on those 3 days, then, you know, can you walk us through? I mean, it's hard to, we always laugh. What is an average homeschool day? Because they all seem to be different. But do you have a general rhythm or flow to those 3 days?
So I think it's a work in progress, because it's sort of new doing the 2 kids. I thought this coming year was going to be my first year, but last year my youngest sort of climbed up to the table and was like, where are my lessons? So I was unprepared to homeschool both of them, but we are trying to work that out a little bit. So we do phonics and math all 3 days. And then, I mean, I'll be honest, my kids are young, so I don't worry so much about whether we get to science or geography. You know, we've done some of like around the world type stuff. So I usually kind of float back and forth between the two. We try to only do one at a time. And there are days where we don't do any of it because either them or I am tired. I have one early riser, my little one. So some days, if I have the energy, she's like, let's do my lesson at 7 a.m. And we might be done with her alone lessons by the time my 7-year-old gets out of bed at 9 o'clock. Yeah, I mean, and you guys have 2 kids, so you know how it is when you have to pretty much teach the phonics and the math separately at these ages. So it's trying to keep one from distracting the other. I actually got a great tip from one of your podcasts. You were talking about getting like ear like noise canceling headphones. And I was like, oh, that's an amazing idea.
They work great.
Yeah, so I got them for my 7-year-old because she would be distracted / jealous when I was working across the table, because we're the kind of family who does it at our kitchen table because
Mhm.
we live in a 2-bedroom house and there are 4 people and a cat. So
Yeah.
our homeschool space is our kitchen table and our living room. So, so I got her those, and those are great. She also now uses them when she has to vacuum. And now she started bringing them in the car because she's a big reader now. And so she wants to read, and her sister loves to sing. So, so she brings them and wears them in the car also so that she can read while her sister sings without distracting her. So
Our 2 kids are just like your 2 kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
they are. So I love your podcast
two.
because
Yeah.
my kids sound the same as yours.
Yeah. I'm seeing so many similarities.
I'm hearing the early riser and
thinking, like,
singer. Yeah, I got all these.
yeah.
I know, I took them all off.
We got to get those headphones
Yep.
back out. I was like, forgot about that.
So
yeah, use your own tip.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
As we say, not as we do.
So you were talking about a lot of sports. Do you do any other activities outside, like dance and that type of stuff, or is it really just mainly sports?
It's mostly the sports right now. My youngest has been doing some dance for the summer, but I pretty much let her try that because our T-ball was on summer hiatus. But we're gonna cut it when school comes back in because I just only have so much. I would like to do some music, which I think there might be a woman at their school who does it one day a week. So we may just kind of sign up for that because we have a homeschool. What do you guys call the place you go? A
A
co-op.
parent, yeah, it's like a parent partnership is what they
That's
call
what
it
they're
here
called
Okay.
here.
in Washington. Yeah, there's also co-ops as well, but those tend to be more private organizations.
In our
Okay,
state.
well, we have something here where the kids can go and take classes, but unfortunately, I live in the central part of my city, but all of the locations are in the outer part. Like
Oh, man.
they're like in there's 3 of them, and they're in any direction, but it would take me like 25 minutes to go there. So I wanted to maybe do music or a language, but I guess I'm gonna try to tackle some Spanish, even though I don't speak it. But now that they're both ready to school, I really also want to introduce a language to them, but I don't want to have to. It's just too hard, the driving around to all the activities.
Oh,
And my
totally.
youngest also she's in speech therapy, but she apparently doesn't need it enough anymore to qualify for an IEP.
Mhm.
So I thought she was going to be able to, that's another great thing about if you're attached to a public charter is if your kid has any sort of special needs, they can still get an IEP and get services while they're on campus. But yeah, my daughter didn't quite qualify for the IEP, so I will probably still be driving her to speech therapy a day a week too. So we just can only do so much driving. So we're gonna maybe try that. There's like a Spanish podcast that we've tried a couple episodes that's fun, and then it's like called Homeschool Languages or something I've heard recommended, and we're gonna give that a shot.
Okay.
I've heard some people do like Spanish lunchtime, and like for all of lunch, they have to be speaking in Spanish or whatever language they're studying, which I think is cool. We've been struggling a little bit introducing a language to our daughter because she's struggling to read. And we're like, we don't want this to get more complicated. And we had some friends who were working on Spanish with their daughter, same age, and she's actually a really good reader, but it's actually like she gets confused a lot because she's like trying to go between languages. And so yeah, we're like not sure when to introduce it. So I'm curious to hear how that goes for you. If you find a great program, please let us know.
Oh, yeah, I will. Yeah, it's hard because I didn't start learning a language till like you had to do it in high school, and I've never been very good at it. And me and my husband have sort of been doing some Duolingo, but he
Oh
does
my gosh, are
German
you
and I do
us or what?
Italian. So
I'm doing Spanish, he's doing Czech.
Okay, doing Czech.
Yep. Yeah, so it's great to both learn another language, but not the same one.
Yeah, and we're not good at either of them.
Speak for yourself, my lady.
Well, Czech was really hard. It's because we want to go visit the Czech Republic at some point, and so
going next year.
Yeah. I only chose Spanish for my kids because obviously we live in Southern California.
Oh yeah.
So
San Diego, right
my
there.
my father-in-law is half Hispanic, so some of their family members do speak Spanish. So it would be nice for them to learn a little bit of it.
I think
Absolutely.
it's a very useful language. I think of all the ones, especially, I mean,
Especially for this country. Yeah.
well, yeah, and
Yeah.
I work in tech, and the amount of factories and vendors and things that are in Mexico is growing rapidly. So we have a lot of Asian stuff, but
Mhm.
we've had a lot of our folks have to go down and talk to vendors and look at factories and supply lines and stuff, and it's all been in Mexico. So I think Spanish is growing in necessity,
Mm.
even in
Yeah.
like the professional world.
Yeah. Well, and they say once you kind of get that like ear for other languages young, then it's supposedly easier to learn
Mhm.
other languages later. So we'll see. Trying to give them, trying to stack the deck in their favor.
I like it.
Let's talk a little bit about homeschool spaces. You talked about 4 people, 2 bedrooms. There's a cat, has his own wing of the house. What does your homeschool space look like? You said it was at the kitchen table. How do you manage everything? What does that look like for you guys?
Chaos mostly.
Well, thank God it's not just us.
I know. I
Yeah.
know.
My poor husband is sort of like a minimalist,
Mm.
and the clutter really bothers him. I'm a clutterer, and my daughters have inherited a lot of that. He's like, they have desks. Why don't they work at their desks? I'm like, have you seen their desks? I think there's one under there somewhere. Even tonight, my oldest was sitting at her sister's desk coloring. I was like, you have a desk right over there somewhere. She's like, do I? You do actually. You could just move a big stack of stuff and you could be over there. So yeah, so our kitchen table becomes sort of a catch-all.
Okay.
And I did get one of those little rolling carts
Okay.
off of Temu because it was much cheaper than Amazon.
Were you saying it
So
wrong? Were you saying it wrong too until the Super Bowl ad came out?
Yeah, because it was like they were
It
like
was-
Temu,
They
Temu, and
called
then
it
you were
Temu, but we thought it was
you've been
Timu.
saying Temu.
oh, I
I
still
don't
say
know.
Temu, so I'm still saying it wrong.
Yeah, we could also call it cheap junk from
Yeah,
China.
yeah.
It would also work.
Yeah. But I'm like, it's the exact same one. So I got one of those little carts. I may
Mhm.
have to get a second one now that we're like full on. But that helps because I can tuck it kind of in my corner of the table.
Mhm.
And so I can keep all of our curriculum that we're using. And then on the top, I put the crayons that I only let them use for homeschool, because otherwise they can't seem to find any crayons when we
What is it
need
with
them
they
for
like
a
disappear?
We
I
all,
don't.
we
that
all
and
end up,
glue sticks. Glue
they all,
sticks.
yeah.
I'm like,
Thank you.
Yeah.
why do we have no glue sticks?
It's not like they're gluing things all over the place. It's not like we find random things stuck together, but yet there are no glue sticks, no crayons, and there's only ever like one sock. It doesn't ever match.
Yep.
It's like individual socks, no crayons, no glue sticks. What is
I don't
And you can never find a pair of scissors. I mean, I feel like the scissors, we need to air tag our scissors because we can never find a
Yeah.
pair of
Well, they can
scissors.
find mine, but they can never find their kid
Right.
scissors.
Their
And
kid scissors,
my
yeah.
daughter, actually, it looks like maybe both my kids are going to be lefties. So like I've gotten my oldest, who's definitely a lefty. I've got her left-handed scissors, a left-handed ruler, and then I'm like, "Where's your stuff? Why are you just awkwardly using my things instead?" But yeah, so I keep that all on the top, and I keep my whiteboard markers so that I have some whiteboard markers to write with that where the tips aren't squished down.
Yes.
Because my youngest she's 5 and she will press real hard on
Oh,
those.
yep.
I know.
The struggle is
So-
real.
That stabber grip.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whiteboards are definitely one of my favorite things
Yeah.
because we can erase, and because ours are small, so we pick them up and we can go sit in the living room or the table or wherever we want. We also have little tiny ones. My oldest really needs to know what we're doing. Otherwise, every time I'm like, okay, now we're gonna do, I get the, why do we have to do something else? So every
Are our
morning,
children the same or what?
yes, they are. Yeah, they are. So yeah, every day I have a little whiteboard, and the night before or the morning of, I write down the list of things that I hope to do in the day. Plus, she's 7, so some things she can look at and sort of do on her own. She's like, okay, I know I need to do this. I can grab that book. Like I can grab my handwriting book and find that page that you listed and do it. So, and I do color code them so that my youngest can at least kind of follow along, even though she can't read yet. So she can knows one color is math, one color is phonics, one color is whatever our extra thing is, either science or geography. And so those are really helpful for them. And I got these, they have these special whiteboard markers that don't erase easily. You actually like have to use the spray so that if they run their finger down it, it doesn't erase the whole thing that you wrote out so nicely.
Wow.
That's nice.
So those are one of my favorite tools is the whiteboard markers that don't erase without spray.
I love it. I feel like I got to go make a wish list now.
I know that sounds like good ideas. Yeah, we're kind of scattered as well right now because we're
Very.
kind of in flux. We're building some new built-ins.
We want to move from one kitchen table to the dining table.
We want to consolidate multiple bookcases and a random section on an end table next to our couch. We want to say, Cal, how about we put the homeschool space into one space,
Right.
and be normal?
And take the mountain of craft
Is that
kits and like put
normal?
them away.
I don't know.
I don't know.
No, I have another corner where I keep all my extra stuff. It's like half a bookshelf. The problem is bookshelves are not the right height for curriculum.
No,
So then
what is with
you
that?
end up with it laying flat, and then you can't find
Yes.
anything.
Well,
and then
and
I
then
have
when-
just bins of random, like, manipulatives.
And when you're stacking multiple heavy things on top of them, it's just like, well, I can't do math. It's so heavy. It's at the bottom.
It's so difficult to find stuff. I don't know. And we were talking to somebody and they were like, oh, well, we just have this really minimal thing. And we're like, oh, I hate to break it to you, but that is not going to last.
I don't know.
Like
Nope.
our house, it's just, unless you just have this amazing ability for things to be all well organized, I just feel like homeschool is chaos. And the moment we hear some people say, well, I don't want my house to look like I homeschool. When somebody walks in and I want them to think, oh my gosh, you're homeschoolers. And I was like, you mean you should give up now? Because the moment people walk into our front door, it's like, oh, there's a volcano kit over there and there's crafts. And look, there's a diorama. Like, oh, you guys
Yep.
homeschool, get a million
Like
books.
I have a big chalkboard in my living room wall. By my dining table, there are
Giant
stars
maps.
from doing a big life journal. There are maps. There are posters of even and odd numbers.
You know what? At this point, it is home decor.
It is
I
home
think
decor.
we just
It
need
is.
to embrace it.
Yeah, for at least
There's
the next couple
probably
years.
something built out of the counting cubes because my kids are always getting a hold of them and building things. And I'm like, I need them to teach math. And they're like, but I built something with them. I'm like, no, that's not what they're for.
My youngest was building dinosaurs today with the snap cubes from math today.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how about library for you? How much do you use the library? Is that a big thing for your family, or do you use something else?
I wouldn't say we use it a lot for homeschooling.
Okay.
I can never seem to find the books I want from the library. We use it a lot just for them to check out books, because if I had to buy books as fast as my daughter went through them, I would be broke. Because I remember her teacher told me once that, because I was concerned, and another mom, we were talking together about learning to read. And she's like, it goes straight. It'll be like a straight line for the longest time. And then all of a sudden it will just shoot up like a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's sort of like they're building skills. And then all of a sudden they'll just put it together. And that's exactly what happened. Because now my daughter gets in trouble because we can't get her to turn off the light and go to bed. Because
awesome.
she was reading. I'm like, yeah, it's a good problem to have, but
It's a great problem.
I love hearing these stories because I think we're firmly in the foothills. We're not on the flat plain anymore, but still the foothills. We have not hit that mountain yet. And our daughter definitely wants to. I feel like more things are clicking into place, but she's not really there yet.
Yeah, she's almost there. I think she's almost there.
But the little one, she's coming up fast.
Yes.
Did you notice that with your youngest when you said that, the youngest was, begging for something? I had the exact same experience. She wanted her own math book. Everything was math, whether it was reading, whether it was science, or I want my math book and let me do my work. How was that with your youngest?
She picks it up fast. I don't know how much of it. I don't think she picked up a lot because my kids did go to a preschool. So oftentimes sometimes she was at preschool while my oldest was home learning early on. But I mean, maybe I'm just a little better at it now. But I do feel like it is just somewhat her personality. She has a much better memory. My oldest, I teach her things, and then the next day she looks at me like she's never seen this in her life.
Our daughter the other day had to write an N. There is an N in her name, by the way. And she's 8.5, and she had to pause and really think about.
And then her eyes slowly drifted up to me, and I'm like, yes, I'm watching you forget how to write an N.
And it's in your name. So
the best is when my oldest is like, wait, she asked my youngest, which one's my right again?
Oh my gosh, the right and the left.
We've missed right. How did we miss right and left? Did we miss a whole the
I'm
whole
like,
thing.
which hand do you write with? She's like, I don't. I'm like, I think you know how to grab a pencil. I'm really sure at this point we've gotten this far. And B&D, I don't know why B&D is still a thing, but it's still a problem for us.
Yeah,
Um,
my oldest, it's the W and the Y. She's always like, she's at that, how do I spell everything? She wants to spell everything right, but she doesn't
Yeah.
know how. So she's always, I'm like, it's a W. She's like, is that the one that's two V's or the one with a tail? I'm like, oh.
Oh my gosh.
it's kind of in the name W.
Yes.
I
I
don't
mean
know.
that's the thing about homeschooling, right? Is each of my kids have very different learning styles, which is what I've learned. The math program that didn't work for us was Math Mammoth, because I
Okay.
realized my oldest needs a lot of review,
Hmm.
which you don't really get in Math Mammoth, because she just does not retain stuff, which I should have known, because when we started learning the alphabet, I remember like we would go over and over the letter like through 4 days of the week, and then like Friday we'd be like, well, you could have a little prize if you can remember this letter, and she'd be like,
Eh,
I got nothing.
I got nothing for you.
Oh, we've been doing
So
this for 4 days.
okay, so because our
But then
kids,
they memorize, the random thing on the playground or the
She
or
can tell you every Wings of Fire
oh
dragon
yes,
character
and
and the
exactly their whole
specifics.
backstory.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yes,
Like, oh
yes.
no, that one's tsunami. I'm like, can you remember your right hand for
Right.
goodness sake?
Oh,
So
yes.
okay,
Everyone
okay.
loves those.
So since our kids are so similar, now we got to workshop this. We're going to take a break from questions here. So Matt and I are always talking about like, is it us, or do we think that our kids
It's
would
me.
have, that our oldest daughter would have these same problems in school? It's just that they would be masked because they would just keep going on, and she could kind of passably get by, but at some point it would catch up with her that she doesn't remember things. What are your thoughts?
I think it definitely would catch up, because I know like even her teachers, like she calls my daughter like one of like the daydreamers. Like she's on her own time schedule, but she's like, but I'm always surprised at what she does pick up,
Yeah.
because then I'll
Mhm.
be like asking, does she know what we're talking about? And she'd be like, oh yeah, you said we were gonna do such and such. So
It's like, yeah, I don't get that.
yeah.
I just don't get it. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
don't know. It's just I guess some people just have better memories. My youngest, I feel like she remembers things, but it's
yeah.
the opposite thing. I have to watch her, that she doesn't memorize like a formula, like
Okay.
memorize like the I don't know, the order of events, and not actually understand. Whereas my
Gotcha.
oldest might understand like the why and like the deeper meaning behind math, even though she might forget the exact like way to write out the equation, but she kind of gets like the why of it. My youngest, I have to really be careful that she's
Yeah.
not just learning a procedure and actually learning like the subject. So
Yeah, that's kind of funny because that's what we talked
we
about.
totally talk about this all the time.
Yeah,
It's
we
very
talk about
funny.
that all the time because in our I went for a physics degree and we always think about the why. I always derive things and don't think about memorizing equations as much as understanding why you're doing the things you're doing. And I
And you
always
don't have a great memory
and I have a terrible memory,
for
like
stuff like that.
names, but I can remember faces, but I can't do the names. I just like those micro details. It's just
And he can't
right
remember formulas, like
right out the
a
window.
whole physics degree, and formulas but he can derive them. Now, I have an engineering degree. I can't derive a formula to save my
Yeah,
life,
it's
but
like
I can memorize with the best of them. And so at some point, it did catch up to me when I got into upper level things. And actually, when I became an engineer, because
mhm,
I could do all of the basics, but when I had to think outside the box and then start putting different formulas together and stuff, not really understanding how they worked
mhm,
didn't help me. Like, oh, well, I passed that test. I did
yeah,
well on it, but I can't actually apply it because I don't understand all the underlying pieces.
yeah,
yeah, it definitely surprised me, because I expected my oldest to be really good at math, because I've always called her my little engineer. Like she was always the kid who was doing puzzles that were like way advanced. She's always been into building Legos. Her teacher says like she draws like almost in like a kid version of like 3D. But I guess it's like there's like linear, and then there's like, I don't remember what she called it, but
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
other sort of thinking, which are like two different ways of thinking about math. And she's got more of that like spatial. So I always say she's either going to be an engineer or an interior decorator, because she also, it always blows my mind. Her and my husband can be like, we're going to move the furniture around and it's going to be like this and that. And I'm like, can you draw me like a computer model because I cannot visualize that in my head.
Yeah,
But
right.
they totally can. And then she will move the furniture around because my husband's a pushover, and I come home and I'm like, why is the living room rearranged? Well, she wanted to. Do we have to leave it this way? He's like, yes, we do, because she really liked it. Well, great. I guess I'm living with this weird configuration of my house now.
That's really interesting. I think it's so interesting the different way people learn, and it doesn't mean
Yeah,
that
right.
you can't be successful. But I guess finding the right way to key into the way your brain works and remembers information, or I think that's really interesting. So yeah, we always wonder this, like, would these still problems still exist? And I guess,
I think so.
looking at, you went to public and private school, like it still existed. Your memory was never great.
No.
Um, and so like maybe it wouldn't matter. But I think eventually it would get overlooked,
Mhm.
at some point, right? Because they would just keep going. And so either she'd get old enough to be
Right.
able to start putting it together, or it would
You fake
fall
it.
down
Yeah.
spectacularly.
Fake it till you make it. So
Yeah.
you've had a good experience here for these first few years. Is your plan to go forward and continue, or do you have a cutoff date, or do you have something in mind there?
We definitely, as of now, plan to continue. I don't know what we'll do when we hit high school. Um, to me, that's almost the scariest time for kids to be in public school. But also, my kids like sports. So if they decide they really want to pursue sports, that might be something to look at. Like I said, our current charter goes through only through eighth grade. And then a lot of the kids then go off to a different charter that's more like, I think, the ones most people know about, where they kind of give you funds and they might have some opportunities for in person things, but it's much less structured than what I have now. But I really haven't started looking too much into it. And my husband does always say, like, what would we do if at some point they were like, I want to go to public school? I mean, I don't know if that would happen because I always try to make it sound really bad. When she's like, well, so and so goes, I'm like, if you go to a regular school, or that's always when she's giving me grief because I want her to do like 20 minutes worth of math. I'm like, if you were at a regular school, you'd have to do learning for like 8 hours a day.
Oh my gosh. I literally said that yesterday to my daughter. That's so funny. Like
No, two
like
things.
this is
There's
coming out of
It's
my
always
mouth.
two
It's so
things.
funny.
You do realize you'll have to wake up an hour earlier than you do now. That's like that at least gets you the vampire sunshine thing. Oh
Yeah.
God. And then the other one is like, hey, you think this is long? Math is at least 2.5 hours a
Those
day.
kids on the street, they're not coming home for like until like 4:30.
Yeah,
So
I know. We
Yeah,
were out
my oldest
shooting.
would never survive public school because of the early like, I mean, getting a kid up
Mhm.
to go to school at 7:30 is insane. I mean, we have to be there at 9:30 the days she has in-person learning, but they're super flexible. Like, there
Our
are
bus
definitely
picks up kids at
families
like
who
7:10 maybe.
Yeah.
don't show
Well,
up till like 11. Yeah, that's insane. Like,
So
I
you'd have
have
to
to
get up at
wake
like
her up
6:30?
sometimes at those hours, and it's not fun. My youngest, she gets up at 6:30 a.m. every day. Before that, actually, she'd be fine, but she would never survive in public school because we're starting to think she might have some ADHD, but she is singing and talking and dancing and jumping 100% of the time. So I can just imagine I'd be getting notes home from the teacher every
yes,
day,
yeah.
and she would not be able to retain anything from the teacher because she would be so busy.
Yeah. Ours is a
You
little bit
you
of
have
a
Yodos in your house, and because ours is up every morning at like
every-
6:50 dancing
dancing,
to her Yodo.
brushing her teeth, and
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
making her
my
own
kids share
breakfast.
a room, so she doesn't have one, but we do
Ooh.
have an okay to wait clock.
Hmm.
Mm.
And she is not supposed to. When we used to have the camera in their room still, we could see her sitting in there staring at the clock, waiting for the sun. Or sometimes she'll come in beforehand. She'd be like, the sun's taking forever to come
The
on my
sun is
clock.
taking forever.
Go back to bed. It's
The
like
sun is on a timer.
She was ours.
early.
Our youngest used to wake up early, and because the dump truck would come out, and
No, well,
Oh,
she calls it a dump truck.
she
It's
called it
actually
the doom truck,
the
the
trash
doom
truck.
truck. And so she would come by, and it would wake up, and you'd hear the blinds open. She'd be pulling on them, and I'm like, oh God, she's up already.
But we have ours set for like 7 a.m. for her Yodo. And it's funny because 7 a.m. will click, my Fitbit will buzz me, I'll tap it, I hear Yodo radio come on, and then boom, her door like slams open and she's singing on the way to the bathroom and then
She's dancing.
singing into our room. And I'm like,
oh yeah, like ready to greet the day. And I'm like, how old before I can teach you how to make coffee for mommy?
right. And she's like, I'm hungry. Let's have breakfast. I'm like, we just woke up. So she slams the door. Sister, get up. And I could hear our oldest going, go away. I'm so
Oh, I'm
tired.
always like, if you wake up your sister, you're going to be in trouble because you know what she's like when
The
she gets
monster.
woken up.
The
And
monster.
we will all pay for it for
It's
the
the
rest
same.
of the day.
I told our youngest the other day, I was like, if you wake her up, you're going to be in so much trouble. Do not wake her up. She was up late last night for, whatever reason. Do not wake her up. You will be sorry.
Yeah,
It
I'm
didn't
always
work.
like, shh, shh. Like I hate having to rely on the TV, but sometimes it's the only way
Oh,
to
so yes.
sort of keep her quiet. I'm like, okay, I will just give in and put Gabby's Dollhouse on. If you will sit down and not wake up your sister and let me drink coffee. Please, 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 child.
So I don't think we've scared away the homeschoolers just yet. Let's bring them
Have we
back.
talked about the grocery bill for snacks yet?
Oh my gosh. How do they eat this much?
I'm not
They're
sure.
hungry
I'm not sure.
constantly.
I just went. I went to Costco and I'm thinking like I have to buy snacks 3 months ahead of time now, so it's like I can be prepared, so I don't have to like worry as much. And
Every
like
snack thing that Costco has, I feel like we're just like, put it in the cart. I don't even care what it is.
64
Yep.
bars.
As soon as you're like, okay, it's time to do a lesson, they're like, oh, I need a snack. I'm like, well, how are you going to practice your reading if you're eating a snack? I could do it. It'll be fine.
I'll make it work, Mom.
Ours will
No,
have
no.
breakfast, our youngest especially. Our oldest is pretty good. She gets on the bandwagon. Oh, sister asked for a snack. I want one. But the
Are you?
youngest,
She's a hobbit.
she's like 9 a.m.
Yep.
She's like, I have a snack. Like, you just ate. I mean, okay, it was a little
Yep.
while ago, but still.
We call it like fifth breakfast because she gets up and she's like if we're doing like a parent handoff, we have to be like, okay, how many breakfasts has she had already? Well, let's
Mhm.
see. She's up to like 3 or 4. Or if you want to go out to breakfast, forget it. I'm like, you don't want to go to breakfast till when? No, she will have eaten eight meals by then. Like it's not that time is not going to work for us.
Ours has at least 3 snacks before lunchtime. I mean, at least.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's
I think
funny
because they
too.
bounce so much. They just because I'm always like, where is it all going? Like you're not obese. Like where? I guess because you never stop moving. So
Well,
burn it
and
off.
so it's funny because if we sent them to school and like with our youngest when she was going to preschool,
Starving.
she would have a little snack, but it's true when we'd pick her up at noon, she was
She'd be
ravenous.
chewing on the seat.
Did you bring me a snack just to drive the 10 minutes to get home? Did you bring a snack?
Yes.
I'm dying here.
But if they were in public school, they wouldn't be getting, all these extra
Yeah.
snack breaks. It would just be lunch. So I don't know which is, I definitely agree. Our snack bill we pay Costco a lot of money every year just for snacks.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because they are pretty much allowed free snacks even on their school days. They can go out in the hallway
Mhm.
whenever they want and have a snack attack time, I guess they call it. I'm like, is my daughter ever going to be in the classroom? Or is she just going to be sitting in the hallway eating until she has no food left in her lunch pail? And then the teacher's going to be calling me like, did you send enough food? I think you need to send more. Or she'll be rating her sister's
Yes,
lunchbox.
that's what it is.
It's probably more likely. I think ours would definitely do that.
So somewhere out there is a homeschooler who hasn't been scared away just yet. What type of words of wisdom and advice could you give them, having had multiple years of experience now, homeschooling 2 children, using the homeschool charter, all these extracurriculars? You're a seasoned, thoroughbred homeschooling mother. What advice can you give people?
Oh yeah, the camps. Oh my goodness, the summer is just
Oh my
like
gosh.
Words of wisdom. I guess to find a community, whether it's getting through a charter. I mean, we kind of have a built-in one. I will say that the families there, I mean, we're encouraged to build a community, but I mean, there doesn't almost a day doesn't go by that the WhatsApp group doesn't have someone like who wants to go to the park for a play date or go for a hike. So I mean, it's sort of built in, which I imagine is harder if you're on your own. But there's parent co-ops and there's Facebook groups, and everyone needs a community just to bounce ideas off of and for kids to play with and people to get you out of your house and to not be afraid to pivot, because it's like with the math, I think I waited too long to admit that we needed to pivot. And also I'd say if you were going if you're starting with a kindergartner, don't buy inexpensive curriculum because you don't know what your teaching style is yet. You don't know what your kid's learning style is. And if you spend like $200 on a curriculum, it's going to be really hard to convince yourself that you need to pivot to something else because it's not working. I mean, but that's the glory of homeschool, is that we can kind of teach to our kids. So we can use different curriculums for each kid. We can change if it's not working. I mean, for me, that was a big point of doing it, was so that I could teach my kids at their level and how they learn.
That's great words of advice. Yeah, and going in easy, small, I think was one of the great ones.
Yeah, because everyone starts, they jump in, they get excited. First they're scared, and then they do the research, and then they get excited, and then they buy lots of things.
Yes.
Ask me how I know.
We're all guilty of it. Yes,
we're all guilty.
We are, and you're right. The more you spent, the more you're like, oh man,
I can't believe this.
Or I would say that same note applies to how much you prep.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy something and then even if it was cheap, but you've prepped 12 weeks of it or whatever so far, and you've got the books on hold at the library and you've planned everything or whatever. I mean, I
have never been prepped.
But
I'm like Sunday night, I'm like, what am I teaching
this week?
Yes. But prepping too far in advance, if that's something that, especially when they haven't started yet. I know a lot of people, because they don't have anything yet. So it's like, oh, I mean, I did this too. I can prep a bunch because you're not actually homeschooling quite yet. So you're really excited and you get into it and you're like, I don't want to abandon any of these plans because I spend a long time on these great plans.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine it'd be hard too if you like had it really blocked out to be like, my kid's not feeling it today, but I have this schedule. And if we don't do it today, we'll be behind. So I think that's one of the reasons I never try to plan too far out. And I like to plan on my iPad in GoodNotes so that I can erase, or I can just leave something in the spot when I plan the next week, and it can just roll right on over if we didn't get to it. So
I love that.
Yeah, flexibility is definitely important.
You've been doing some educational online resources and stuff like that. Where can people find out more about what you're doing online?
So I have my website is the main place. It's taughtschoolresources.com. So it's mostly kid crafts. And then I'm terrible about going, I want to teach my kid, I'm looking for this exact resource. And then I find like 5 that are kind of close, that are not what I want. So then I create my own, and then those end up on my website too. Or I'm also on social media under those. And I have an Etsy shop with a few resources too. But awesome. Which is the cool thing. You never know when your homeschool might also become a little bit of a business, of very much a side hustle. But
exactly.
That's great. Well, we'll put all the links to that down in the show notes so that folks can check it out. I definitely want to. I could always use more crafts in our lives because I'm just not good at thinking of any of that stuff.
Yes, I mean, I appreciate all the stuff you guys lay out. I've watched a bunch of your around the world stuff and the noise canceling headphones, holding on to that one. So you never know the little things you'll pick up from other people's podcasts and videos.
I agree. Crowdsourcing this experience it's homeschooling is almost this like very decentralized thing where everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and some people are doing things together, and you can cross learn, but there's no like one authority top down how to do it. And I think all that experimentation leads to a lot of discovery and cool insights that I think can share across. And by sharing those type of things, we all, I think, get better at the same time. So thank you for sharing your experience today with us, Shari. It's been absolutely a dream.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I was glad to do it.
Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!